All right, we are live. Hi everyone. We're here with Jasmine Jafar. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did. It's my stage
Yes,
name, my
fantastic.
online name.
Fantastic. So hi Jasmine. Do you want to introduce yourself to our audience? A lot of people are excited already in live chat, but can you let us know a little bit? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Jasmine Jafar. I'm an OnlyFans creator. I'm Iranian. Both of my parents were immigrants from Iran. I was born in the United States, but both of my parents were born in Iran. I also became a lawyer. So I am a licensed attorney, but I decided like pretty much right when I started working that it's not what I wanted to do. So I kind of have been able to luckily have a very successful and fruitful career doing social media and OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. So what made you, first of all, what made you go into law and what made you change your mind?
Well, I went into law because I had the stereotypical Persian parents, lawyer, doctor, engineer. My mom is a lawyer. My dad's an engineer. I was always good at school. So I was just like, okay, I guess this is life. You know, you just do what your parents say and, you know, they give you all these opportunities. And I, you know, did well in school. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep going. And I remember like when it was close to graduation, I was like, I don't want to do this. But I was like, well, what are you going to do? This is life. And I didn't think there was a way out of it. So it's not that I ever really even changed my mind. It's just that it's something that I was just doing to do because I thought that's just what you do in life. And then as soon as I had a way out, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this.
Okay, when you thought about your way out, like a lot of people don't consider that option. Can you like take me through what was the beginning, like when you saw this option, when you considered, like what was going through your mind when you were considering it?
So
coming from a person.
Yeah, exactly. Coming from a Persian background, it's not. So I had a friend in law school. So this was like coronavirus, like hit in the middle of when I was in law school. And I had one other friend who started an OnlyFans secretly and she was making money. And I was like, okay. And at the time I had no social media. I don't even know how to start it. I barely know how to use the internet now even. So I was like, okay, this is something other people do, but it's not something I could do. Fast forward to now I'm studying for the bar. My parents were obviously like, I got a full tuition scholarship to law school. So that was great. But my parents obviously, like my dad bought a house so that I could live in it. Like my parents were 100% financially supporting me and everything. But I was like, okay, maybe I could make a little you know, I'm home studying for the bar this whole time. Let me just maybe try posting a few pictures, whatever, make some extra money because I was hearing about all these girls making like thousands of dollars within days of doing this. So my plan was just post a little bit. And then obviously once you take the exam, delete it all. It'll go away, whatever. That was really the mindset. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to start this career. But then it took off. And then I took the bar exam and then I was already making way more than I would make as a first year associate, more I would even make as a partner in a law firm. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to try to hold off getting a job. Like I won't apply for jobs. I just kept telling my parents, oh, it's COVID. No one's hiring. Then I got a job that I got through an old externship. And I was like, oh, and I remember I called my sister and I was like, I don't want this job. And she said, are you crazy? She said, you know what? Just do both. Do this and do that. Like, but don't stop. You just finished law school. You just passed the bar. Why would you not? And I was like, okay, you're right. So for a while I was working at my law firm and I had like a double life because I was also working on my OnlyFans career. And I was making a ton of money doing that, but I also just enjoyed it. So I was like, okay, I have this like thing that I can use if I ever want to leave. Cause like every day I would go into my office, I was just thinking, I don't have to be here, which I liked because I hate like waking up, going to your office. And for those of you that don't know, being a lawyer, you have like billable hours you need to meet, blah, blah, blah. It's just a very boring and mundane life. And I used to be so jealous, like seeing people online that were able to make money being influencers or like working from home and making their own careers and being their own boss. I just didn't know that was something I could do. And so eventually I've quit that job and I've been doing this ever since.
Yeah, so I kind of get that because I used to be in finance. I used to work in private equity, and I hated my life going to the office. It was just such a the money
So
is really
stressful.
really good. But yes, exactly. So eventually I became like, I don't know, a YouTuber and just like
Yeah.
activist and stuff like that. But so the thing is that what makes this enjoyable for me is not the money, because I don't make as much as money as you are, but it's just that it's meaningful. So
Yes.
when you say when you said that you enjoy it, because a lot of people go into it for the money, and
Yeah.
you come from, it seems like you come up from a family that is very well off, a lot
Yeah.
of people, which is interesting, because a lot of girls that get into this business, they need money. But
Exactly.
usually girls that come from a background that you come from, they don't even think about money that much. Money is not really that much in their mind, because
Yeah.
their parents just take care of them all the time. So
Exactly.
it's just so interesting that it's not just the money, it's actually you
Yeah.
find it rewarding.
If I made
Yeah.
less money, I would still do it. I love the freedom. I love being my personality being online. Like one of the things I was even my friends worried about, like, oh, you like to read. I was just talking about how I read you. I have your book. You're
Yeah.
gonna be bored if you're not doing anything that's intellectually stimulating. But then like I go on and I talk to my fans about philosophy. I can make different things, bringing my personality. And I've been doing a lot of debates on these types of topics. So I found a way to bring my personality and myself into it that made it more interesting. And I think part of it is that because I was so dependent on my parents, I had never done anything because I wanted to. I was just following the path. So doing something that was a risk, that went against what everybody was telling me to do, and succeeding at it also brought me a level of confidence that I never had. So everyone's like, oh, good job, you're a lawyer. And I never felt like that was an accomplishment, because I was like, okay, it wasn't that hard. Like, who cares? But starting a successful OnlyFans career and not being afraid of all the pushback and the stigma and everything, that made me more proud of myself than being a lawyer ever did. And my parents said the same thing. They're like, why are you doing this? It's like, these are for those types of girls.
Right. Actually, I saw you go on. Is this one of the reasons why you're so famous on OnlyFans? Because you go on other places and talk about politics and philosophy, and
Yeah.
you actually, it's not just a show. You actually come off as very intelligent and
Thank you.
knowledgeable. Is it because you're like your background, or because you're a lawyer, or
Um,
because you read a lot?
I'm intellectually curious. I think that's why I resonated with you and like books like this, because I've always been this kind of like rational, analytical thinker. So reading this, like your brain thinks like exactly how my brain always thinks. And because of that, I always was like interested in understanding life and understanding science. And like speaking of religion, like I was never really religious, because ever since I was young, I was questioning. I'm like, this is weird, and my parents weren't super religious or anything, but so because of that, I was always curious. I always wanted to know, like, well, what is the meaning of life? Because I don't believe in religion. So I always was just curious, and I liked, and like always, like my mom used to make fun of me. Like I would work out and listen to debates, like whatever. So I was just always interested in this kind of stuff. So my brain works that way. That's why law was easy for me, because law is all about analyzing. Like you have a rule, analysis, you make an argument, you have a counter argument, conclusion. And then when I got into this space, I went on these different podcasts, and a lot of these podcasts, the people are so stupid. So I was like, oh, I could do this. I could just go on and like whatever and become more famous by just being one of the only women in this industry that's able to argue with these kinds of people successfully.
Right. And it's actually because you consider yourself a sex work advocate as well, right?
Yes.
That's what you heard you saying.
Yes.
So because a lot of people are also assume that sex workers are not as intelligent, I think
Yes.
just by showing up on these podcasts and debates, that's a taboo that you're breaking, right? Because people think that you're just going to make a fool out of.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that makes me fulfilled, is breaking the stereotype and being an example of what it means to live life on your own term. Because a lot of people, when you do this, they say you have no talent. You couldn't do anything else. Well, I'm a lawyer. I could do something else. And going from one of the most respected professions to like one of the least has actually been very exciting for me, because I feel like I can challenge people's thoughts better than I could as a lawyer.
Right. By the way, you're not just on OnlyFans. You have a YouTube channel. I love your YouTube channel because you talk about, you give legal advice to sex workers and stuff, right?
Yeah, I try.
Okay.
I want to do more of that. Thank you.
So I just posted a link to your YouTube channel for people who want to check it out in the live chat. And also there's a link to it in the description. So, okay, so some of the questions might get a little bit personal, but before we get to that, I want to talk about your family and what was their reaction. But let's get through the fun stuff first. Do you speak Persian?
Yes. So Farsi is my first language, but obviously, like most second generation kids, like as I got older, now my parents talk to me in Farsi and I answer in English. So I can't speak Farsi. Yeah. I'm just embarrassed of my accent.
No, don't.
And I get a lot of Iranian fans who want me to do custom videos for them in Farsi, and I can't do it. I feel so awkward because Farsi to me was so associated with my family and mehmunis and my parents. Like, to bring that into like a sexual, I can't do it. It just, I don't even, like, people will be like, can you talk dirty in Farsi? I say, not really, because all my Farsi is from my parents and they don't talk, I don't even know really bad words in Farsi. So,
well, can you speak not dirty in Farsi right now?
I can try, but I'm embarrassed.
Okay, well, go ahead.
What do you want me to say?
خوبین شما؟ حال شما خوبه؟ مرسی جزم خانم که اومدید.
مرسی. خیلی ممنون.
خب یه ذره از الان برنامه فعلا خوب پیش میره؟ اذیتت نکردم؟ سوالا خوب بوده؟
نه اصلا خیلی خوبه.
Okay, yeah, that's cute. That's fine. You're good.
I literally, when I was little, and my parents would be like, "Talk to your amis or whatever," and they'd be like, "Kemi or Iran?" And I'm just like, "Bale, bale." Like
Well, here's the thing. I was like that for a while because when I left Iran, I didn't find Persian Iranian friends, in Canada. Like, I just strictly wanted to make sure that I don't have Iranian friends because I didn't want to get mixed with that community. So after a decade or so, I became like you, and I had an accent. I forgot how to say certain phrases or certain sentences. But now that I'm doing a Persian show, it's all coming back.
Yeah,
I was interested in.
If I go to France, because I have cousins in France and they speak French and I speak English, so the only way we can talk is in Farsi. I noticed that after a couple weeks, my memory comes in because Farsi was my first language. I was in ESL. So right. I like, if you watch when I was like 3, I was just full on singing songs in Farsi, and my mom's like always like, oh, whatever. But like now I completely I never speak in Farsi, unless it's like on the phone with like someone, and then I just get bale, merci, bale, like that's all I do.
Well, would you ever consider coming to this is our English channel. I have also a Persian channel. Would you ever consider coming to the Persian channel and speaking Persian? Like,
yes, as long as people realize it's going to be very broken Farsi.
They're used to that. It's fine. Like, we had guests. We had Iranian Israelis on our show with and we had Israelis on our show who just learned Persian just for fun, and people love it. People love it when you try. But by the way, you haven't been to Iran, have you?
I did when I was last time when I was 10. So very long.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you should go.
No. Me and you probably know.
Do you follow? Yeah, there was recently an OnlyFans model that went to Iran, and I think that was crazy. And the Iranian regime kind of didn't do anything. But you, because you're American and Iranian, you are such a good hostage. You know what I mean? Like, you are such a good potential. So do not go to Iran.
No, that's why I don't even use my real name or anything, because my parents go back a lot. I just don't want. Plus, Iran isn't even fun right now. It's not like I'm dying to go anyway.
Right. Yeah. Do you follow Iranian politics?
I mean, my dad is one of those, like my mom and dad, but especially my dad is constantly like, he's one of those obviously like watches reminiscent videos of the Shah and hates this new, like one of those people. So I know a little bit, but I don't follow really.
Okay, because we could really use your voice right now in Iran. There's the Woman Life Freedom Revolution, the Master Revolution, could use some attention. And given, you know, I mean, if you like, no pressure, but
yeah,
well,
I did.
Pressure.
I did when that was the whole thing was happening. I did do what I did speak out about it, what like how I could. But I'm one of those people that I want to do a ton of research before I give any opinions. And right now, all I kind of know is what my parents think. And so if I ever go down the line and do a bunch of research and come to my own conclusions, then I would be happy to share it. It just needs to be interesting because most of my audience, I do have a large Iranian fan base just because they're probably like interested, like, oh, Iranian girl on OnlyFans. But most of my fan base is obviously not Iranian. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, there will become, well, if you start talking about Iranian politics, you will have more Iranian.
I did. I remember when the whole Woman Life Freedom thing was at its peak, I was sharing it and I had a lot of people that were like, oh, I learned about it because of you. So yeah, I do think it's important to use my voice when I can. But there's just so many things, right? If I talk about this, then people will be like, why aren't you talking about this? You know, it's just always.
Well, I mean, you're not afraid of controversy. Like, people are gonna hate on you no matter what. So
yeah, and I like it. I actually like it because otherwise it's boring. That's why I was like, yes, challenge me.
Yeah, and I think you use that the controversy to bring more people to your social media, right?
Yeah, I bring up it bothers people. It very much bothers people that I'm a lawyer, Iranian, good family, good background, and I chose to do this. Oh, angers people, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, why do you think it angers people?
Because I am going against whenever somebody breaks the societal norm and they're succeed at it, it bothers people. And especially I think with women and like the extra misogyny that's embedded in a lot of people. Like, I mean, look at Iran. You want to repress female sexuality. You want to tell them that it's shameful, it's bad, don't do this, don't show that. And so when somebody says, I'm going to do it anyway, and then people want that person to suffer. Like, people always tell me, oh, you're going to suffer later, or you're going to do this, or you're going to do that. And I always think like, well, what if I don't? What if I'm just happy forever? What if I just get to, you know, and that people don't like that because people expect there to be consequences for breaking tradition. And when I come out and I'm like, I'm doing it, I'm not, at least right now, there's not these terrible consequences. It breaks people's framework of what the world is supposed to look like.
Why do you think people have such a sensitive reaction to female sexuality? Like, what is it about?
I think it's because it's powerful. Because it's powerful, and it's a way that women having that power and being able to use it in the way that they see fit, that's profitable to them instead of what's profitable to the ideology. Like if you look at Islam, for instance, that bothers people. Like OnlyFans is an example too, because when there was just regular porn, boys weren't complaining. Now, all of a sudden that women ourselves were putting it behind a paywall and we're making money off of it. Now, oh my gosh, it's ruining society. You know,
they were complaining then too. There were the conservatives.
Less. There wasn't all these podcasts that were the manosphere. I don't know how much you know about like the manosphere.
Well, there weren't any podcasts. There weren't podcasts back like when I mean before podcasts, before social media. Like the conservatives, they were, you know, even like the Playboy magazine, they were
conservatives
killed over that.
Conservatives, yes, but now there's this different breed. So there's the conservatives, the traditional conservatives are kind of fighting with this Andrew Tate alpha male manosphere.
Yes, which we'll get to that actually.
Yeah. And they are pretty much upset about this.
My theory is that this is what you're going against is something that is 10 to 12,000 years old. You know, ever since we became civilized, the whole men managed to take control because, you know, we were producing more calories than we needed to. So some part of the society would have to control and be, you know, soldiers and bring order. And because of that, men who had more muscles managed to become in charge of, you know, controlling and protecting the goods, and the goods included female sexuality.
Yeah,
you know, because, you know, just like you protected the grains, just like you protected and controlled, you know, the livestock, female sexuality became a commodity as well, and men, because they had the muscles, they were the soldiers, they were in charge of controlling that, selling that, controlling the flow of it, and basically that got ingrained into the way we think. Yes, yes. And now that after 10,000 years we're coming out of that, it's just so hard because this is so deeply embedded in our, you know, culture and our way of thinking. That's why it's so difficult to come
and
out. And
evolution takes a very long time. So it made sense why female sexuality was more repressed than men. Women, you needed to be able to determine paternity. There was issues of like ST. So like when you look at like the evolutionary explanations for why we're kind of a polygamous species, but we're also monogamous, you can kind of see. And then obviously that stuff takes a very long time to come out of our, like it's an innate gut, almost disgust reflex at sexuality for a reason. That's natural. It's fine. But your genes and your evolution don't care if you're happy. They're not like rationally thinking. That's the why we have our primitive brain and our conscious reasoning brain. But so many people stay stuck in that primitive brain.
I think this is more cultural than genetical because, you know, when you say evolution, I think this is more about the evolution of the memes rather than evolution of the genes, because it wasn't like this before we had civilization. It wasn't like this at all. Like,
but the fact that so many cultures have done this, it's also, it seems to be the most, like you said, evolution of me. It's the most successful way to, the societies that did this were the most successful, which is why they've been replicated.
Yeah. Well, it's just the most given that men had the muscle, it was just the most convenient way to manage all of this. But anyway, before we move on to just one last thing I want to point before we move to the you know, religion, and you identified as an ex-Muslim, I saw somewhere, so I want to talk to you about that. But if you ever decide to look into Iranian politics and you weren't sure about anything, like feel free to reach out to me and, you know, ask me any questions, because I do, you know, on our Persian show especially, we get really deep into Iranian politics, and I think like our channel, our Persian channel, is one of the, I would say is one of the best sources of political analysis of what's happening in Iran. So feel free to use me as a resource anytime.
Yeah, actually, just if you want to just send me like what you think I should start with reading wise, or even videos to like kind of get an overview and understand. Just do that. Yeah. I mean, you have my Twitter, so.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'll do that. Okay, so this is interesting. You said somewhere, I think there was a video on your Twitter that you referred to you as an ex-Muslim. So do you consider yourself as an ex-Muslim?
I grew up culturally Muslim. Now, I don't think I ever, I mean, when you're a kid, you always believe in God. I mean, my parents weren't like super hardcore Muslim, but like more like deist almost, like, oh, don't waste food. Whatever the hell. But like, I wasn't ever religious, definitely. Since I was young, I was very much like, I don't know about this. So I wouldn't consider myself, like, I know your story was more like you were a hardcore believer and you evolved to non-belief. I didn't start at the same
1 year. I was hardcore believer for only 1 year. Like my parents were liberal as well.
Yeah. So because of that, I didn't even have the year. I was never a hardcore believer. When I was a child, I thought probably there's a God just because everyone's telling me. But as soon as I was able to kind of question it, especially like the specifics of religion, like it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, well, why does God care about this? You know, I always was a curious child. So then once I got into, I was like maybe early college at the time when the 4 horsemen of atheism was like a big thing, like the new atheists, like Dawkins, Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, I don't know who the other one, Sam Harris. When they started becoming a thing, then I got very into these arguments, some of the arguments that you lay out in your book. And then I became very interested in the topic. And then I became interested in religion as understanding it culturally, like anthropology, understanding the evolution of religion and how it influences people, like the psychology aspect of it. I love.
What made you decide, because you already didn't believe in God, so what made you decide to read my book?
I was looking up books on atheism, and like, just because, and this was like maybe a couple years ago, because I had done my whole atheism stint and I was like, I haven't looked at this stuff in a while. And I remember I was doing a debate and I forgot a lot of the arguments. Like it's in there, but like, I was like, I need a refresher. And someone was like, you were on some page of like top 10 and they're like, oh, this was very simple, 20 responses to like, and short book. I was like, oh, perfect. And this like jogged my memory into all these kinds of arguments. So it was like the perfect book for a refresher on atheist arguments.
Was it good? Was it helpful?
Oh, it was excellent. Very well written, very concise to the point. Because I didn't want to read some like long, you know, I'm not interested in this as much anymore, just because it's pretty established in my philosophical framework. But something like this is just like an easy. This is always the book. In fact, I'm bringing this book to one of my friends who's a believer that I'm kind of convincing not to be. And if there's one book that I recommend for, especially people who like don't read like a lot and they need something short, I'm going to bring them this. I'm going to be like, read this, because I feel like this is such a quick and efficient atheist book.
You know, you have no idea how happy you made me by saying that. Thank you
so I'm actually bringing it to Canada on Friday to visit a friend. I'm going to bring the book and I'm going to be like, read this and then tell me what you think.
You know, especially given that, you know, you deal with the red pill community a lot. Like, they attack you, they question your views, they question what you stand for. And there is, what is it with the red pill community and Islam? There seems to be a lot of them. You do need to be equipped with a lot of these arguments, because that's what you're dealing with. That's the people that you debate with, and they probably will bring up God and Islam. So yeah, what is it? What's happening there? Why
like we had Andrew Tate, Sneeko, a couple of them go. Actually, one of my most viral clips is asking Myron, I'll be the Fresh and Fit host guy. I'm like, you know, you claim to be Muslim, but you think that men should be able to sleep around. But in the Quran, there's restrictions on male sexuality. And he got stunted because I was like, so is God wrong? And he said, no, I'm talking about modern times. And I was like, well, why did God not predict modern times? Like, why, you know, I'm like, I think the Quran is supposed to apply to any society ever. Who are you to say you know better than God and that men should sleep around, but women shouldn't? Because he always uses the argument, women shouldn't sleep around. It's in all the religions. I said, well, because he talks about how you need to go to the club and sleep with 50 women, whatever. I'm like, this is, and so he kind of got stuck on it. So, and then actually he's like, well, it's not even a major sin for men in Islam. And I was like, oh, isn't zina like a major? And then even all the Muslims were like, no, Myron, this is actually, she's right. This is a major sin. So I kind of, that's why they don't like me, because I can get them on these kinds of arguments. And that was one of the arguments I used. I said, look, I'm an atheist, but you can't purport to believe in God and then say, and then he was like, I think if the world followed the Quran, the world would be a lot better place. I'm like, okay, everything except the restriction on men. And that made him kind of have to stop, because I'm like, how convenient. The Quran solves everything except the part where you have to control your behavior.
So he doesn't know how to, by the way, good job. Fantastic. Well done. So, but he is not very good at defending Islam. If I was a Muslim and if you were trying to use that on me, and if I was like sleeping around with a lot of women, I would respond by saying, you know what? You're right. It is a sin. This is wrong. No Muslim is perfect, and I am not perfect.
Yeah,
I acknowledge that this is what I would say. I would acknowledge that this is a sin, and I have to do better. And we all fail in our way to be on the right path. But what matters is to try. What matters is to know that you're sinning, and what matters is that not to deny God's commandments like you're doing.
Yeah. But
how would you say?
How I would respond to that if you were him is I would say, but you're promoting this on your podcast. You are telling men to do this. It's one thing. Let's say you're Muslim and you eat pork and you know it's a bad thing. And you say, I shouldn't do this, but I'm sinning. It's another thing to get on a platform and tell all men you should eat pork. He tells men you should build yourself up, be high value. And then when you're high value, you deserve to have all these women. I'm like, you're not only sinning yourself, you're encouraging your whole audience to go against God. That's what I would say.
Can he just like read out a verse to do the nikah, and technically before having sex, and technically they would be his wives or temporary wives, and that would be okay then?
I mean, maybe that's not what he tells his audience. He's not only just
okay. I would put myself in that position, and I would respond to you this way: like, you know what? You're right. From now on, I will still sleep around with a lot of women. Thank you so much. See, Allah brings his message in the most bizarre ways, sometimes through an OnlyFans girls. And you're right, you have corrected me. I will still sleep around with a lot of women, but I just make sure that I will read the verses that I'm supposed to before I have sex with these women, and that will make it Islamically okay. Because men can sleep around, Islamically, men can sleep around with a lot of women, right?
Yeah.
It's women who can't do that. So he would have that.
I mean, I would then say, have fun doing that when you're picking up these girls in Miami clubs, taking them back to your house, and then bringing out a Quran and reading it. I was like, they might not want to sleep. They might not want to sleep with you after that. They're gonna think you're crazy.
Well, I don't know if you're so high value, then if you're so, oh, here's my comeback. If you're so high valued, they wouldn't care. They would just beg you to have sex with them.
And then I would say,
like,
your audience is certainly not high value, and they can barely get any girl. And now you're going to ruin the one opportunity they get.
No, well, thank you so much, Jasmine. That's then become. You're not high value. become high valued. There,
yeah, you become high value enough that you can start reading Quran verses, and I'd be like, look, I haven't heard a single in the West like say that, oh, if you go to America, then these rules no longer apply. But obviously, because he doesn't know Islam very well, he was just like, oh, it's not a sin. Zina is not a sin. And everyone's like, yeah, it is. So even the Muslims were like, she got you on that argument. But yeah, there has been this trend of red pill creators like Sneeko, Andrew Tate. And it's funny because the things they like about it, like Sneeko is like, you know, he's young, he's like a big streamer guy. And I've noticed that he at first goes like their way. And then he goes, well, this kind of seems degenerate. He goes, oh, in Islam, I can have 4 wives. So yeah, you should just be with the 4 wives. You shouldn't go be with 100 women, just the 4. So it's almost like it's still misogynistic enough. It's the most misogynistic religion that they can adopt.
Actually, you can go beyond 4 because you could have 4 wives and unlimited slaves, sex slaves.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's less so of the common belief, but I would defer to you on that. But you know, these guys, I mean, especially these, I think there's also these Islamic creators that are like blowing up, like Muhammad Hijab and these types of, you know, like insane Muslim debaters. And these guys seem attractive to these guys because they're strong. A lot of them, like you see even the arguments like Andrew Tate makes, like Christianity's weak. They don't defend the belief. In Islam, they'll kill you if you draw the prophet. That's attractive to these guys who want this macho, like almost like warlord, like Muhammad vibes. They don't want the hippie Jesus. They want the strong, the one who crushes enemies, the one who has all these women, the one who doesn't let you disrespect the Quran. Like that's what he says. He's like, oh, I like it because you can't disrespect the Quran. In America, they let you make fun of Jesus. They don't defend the beliefs like Muslims do. So that's why they've gotten so much attention and traction, especially linking up with these other Muslim influencers like Muhammad Hijab and some of these other ones. And it brings off like, oh yeah, in Islam, we actually have men be masculine, because their whole argument is Christianity has been infected by feminism and liberal beliefs that make men weak and get rid of gender roles, whereas Islam still holds strong to those. So I think that's why it's attractive to these kinds.
That's a direct promotion of violence by Andrew Tate. When they say like, oh, look at Muslims, they don't let people insult their prophet. Well, people are afraid to insult the prophet. Well, why are people afraid to insult the prophet? Because of the violence. And if you say that's good, basically you're endorsing like that French teacher that was beheaded.
Yeah.
You're saying that's a good, you're endorsing that. You're endorsing that. It's bizarre that he's saying that. Like when you, how is he not even canceled? That's an endorsement of violent behavior on social media.
He's banned on all social media platforms, but he's I mean, he's in house arrest in Romania, or I think now he's just stuck for human trafficking.
But he wasn't banned for that. He was banned for like other things, but like that people when you endorse violence Islamically, social media doesn't
it has to be a direct
as much as. Yes, it has to be direct. By the way, something you said about zina being a sin in Islam, right? Which we are correct, and he denying that's actually puts you out of the fold of Islam. You are not, because you could be as a Muslim, so you might use this against them if you want in the future. In Islam, if you sin, you're still a Muslim, right? Because Muslims sin all the time. That doesn't make you not a Muslim. But if you deny Allah's commands, then you are not a Muslim anymore. So you could, for example, have sex with somebody outside of marriage, and that will be counted as a sin, which you will pay for in the afterlife, and unless you ask God for forgiveness, but you will still be a Muslim even though you have sinned and had sex out of marriage. But if you come and say that is not a sin in Islam, then that would make you an ex-Muslim, that will make you a kafir, that will put you outside of that you cannot do. So he's technically,
I should tell him that next time. I should be like, you are now an apostate.
Yeah, you're an apostate, and you're an apostate.
Oh, he hates me. It's so good.
Yeah, you're an apostate, and according to Islam, you could be put to death right now. Yes.
Death, so have fun with that, because he has a large. I find these like men from other like Islamic countries that come and get raised here, but they still want that misogyny and that kind of, especially when they don't do well with women. This is the kind of content that they like. And, his argument is always, well, the women have become horrible and promiscuous. So you have to, if you want to succeed, you have to go by these rules. Back in those days, all women were virgins and submissive. And I mean, have you heard of the passport bro trend? Where these men, they want to go to other countries and find these more submissive women. But it's funny because the way I'm able to combat all these is everything is the opposite of what's showcased through statistics. Like he'll be like, oh, educated women are the worst. They're going to do. And I'm like, well, the more educated you are, the lower your divorce rate is. So these women are actually less likely to divorce. Or he'll say, oh, he's like 35. He'll say, you want like a 19, 20-year-old so that they're not corrupted by feminism. And I said, oh, but if you have a 10-year age gap, your divorce rate goes up by 40%. So how do you reconcile this? And then they just get mad. One time they kicked me off for that. So it's very it's very easy to combat their arguments, because if you look at this data and the science, it all goes against what they're saying. Oh, don't date educated women. Date women that are 18, marry women that are 18 years old. I said, look, the three things that are going to lower your divorce rate is 25 and up, or 25 and 30, between 25 to 32, college educated, and first marriage. That would already drop it to 20%, because they have this idea that women all are divorcing men, taking their money, blah, 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 blah. But then they say, go marry some 19-year-old girl who wants money. And I'm like, this is the worst advice ever.
Do you ask, by the way, I love it when you drop like statistics and stuff, because these people act like they're intelligent and all these girls are idiots who don't know what they're talking about, and they're supposed to like catch you. But you come up with data like that, it's just basically completely reverses what they were intending to do. I don't know if you have done this or not, because they talk about sexual morality and degeneracy, while at the same time they're endorsing a prophet that had sex, basically RAPE'd a 9-year-old girl, and they are endorsing that. They're advocating for that. That's your prophet, and you are endorsing that as a role model for all men of all time. So how is that not hypocritical?
There was actually a viral clip that I watched recently. Do you know who Destiny is? He's like a streamer.
Yes, I've been on his show a couple of times. Yeah,
he's him and Sneeko. They were on some like call or whatever. And he asked, what's the age of consent in Islam? Because of Aisha being, and he didn't know how to answer it, because he's one of those new Muslims that just decided to convert. And he said, oh, is it okay to be with 9-year-old? And he didn't really know what to say other than the old, it was, at that time, 9 was more developed than this time. Some other Muslims say, oh, she was actually 18. You know all the arguments people make. Because I love sometimes when I want to fall asleep, especially when I was more into this stuff, I'll fall asleep listening to one of these guys defend these horrible verses, like they're lashing adulterers, and they'll like be like, oh, it's not a hard lash, and it's only if there's this, so it's only for people who are doing it open, poor, like they find, and I'm like, this is so retarded. I'm like, this is stupid.
By the way, it's not the age of, so if I was talking to Destiny, I would say it's not the age of consent, because there is no consent in Islam. The only consent that matters is the consent of the parents. It's not the consent of that woman. Like, if you're looking for the age of consent, there is no such a thing. Yes.
Nico doesn't want to look bad. So if you say that, that's even worse for Islam.
So it would be the age of having sex, not the age of consent, because even if you get older, it's not your choice anyways. And also the age of consent. So that's in that. So if you ever want me to show you this, let me know, because this is the hadith that shows Muhammad had sex with, a 9-year-old. But if you actually look at the Quran, it's actually below 9. It's below 9, and it's actually even below having your period. So the Quran makes it very clear that you could have sexual intercourse even with women who have had not yet their periods. So the Quran is actually makes it even worse than the Aisha story. A lot of people don't know that because
Yeah.
it's
Well, I mean,
it's a
if
little
you
bit.
were on Sneeko's side, what would you, is there any defense of this that you can think of that's good?
The defense is that whatever the actual defense is that nobody would use because it will make them look terrible is that what we get, the idea of right and wrong comes from God, right? So even so, you guys are saying, oh, this is wrong. How would you know this is wrong? Where are you atheists are getting your ideas of wrong from? If God is saying this is okay, then it's obviously okay because he's the creator of the universe and he understands his creation more than you people could ever understand. And you must be so full of yourself and so you have too much faith in your ability to reason to think that you would know these things. But we as Muslims realize the limitation of the human mind. We have access to the creator of everything and we get our right or wrong from him and we don't question it. We just accept it.
Yeah. So but then the other person would say, okay, so if God said it's okay to molest babies, is it okay to molest babies? And then the person has to say yes. So that's not an argument that makes you look good. And then it goes into, sort of like the Euthyphro dilemma. Like you could use that. Like, are things good because God commands it, or does God command it because things are good? So you can corner people on that. And plus, these guys, they want to make Islam seem good. They're not going to come on here and say, well, they could. I mean, they do that. They say you guys don't have a conception of right or wrong, and then you can say, okay, well, if God says to go kill your mother, do you go kill your mother? Is that good now? And the real answer is yes.
Well, that's the story of. Yeah, well, that's Abraham's story. That's the whole point of Abraham's story is to advocate for the divine command theory of morality. God told Abraham to go kill your son, and that's now the good thing to do. You know,
but so people do this kind of cherry pick. Like you're like me in the sense that, like, I think you were even saying this, and I think was it Sam Harris who says this, that like the most logical religious people are the fundamentalists. Because I was thinking, like, if I really believe this is the word of God, but people now, they do kind of, I take this, I take that, which is good because I don't want them to all be crazy. But at the same time, if I really believe it, I would be crazy. I would follow it to a T. I'd say, yes, this is the truth. And you saying you were hardcore religious because your brain kind of works like mine, I would follow it. I wouldn't just say, I like this part. But thank God most people do that, because imagine if I don't want most people to be fundamental Muslims, but being a fundamentalist is the most logical and intellectually coherent way to follow the scripture. So I think a frustration I have, and I'm sure a frustration you have too, is we're not going to eradicate religion from these places. So these reformists, the ones who say, oh, that's just a metaphor. Oh, they don't really, those ones are actually doing more to make people less extreme, but it's annoying because we're still confined.
I disagree. I actually disagree with you. I think the reformers are doing more harm than the fundamentalists. Okay. Most Muslims who are nominal or minimalist Muslims, it's not that they're not doing these evil things because somebody convinced them to reform Islam. It's just that Islam hasn't been able to take over all their humanity. And most people are just living peaceful lives because that's how the best way to live. It's not because of reformist arguments, right? The reformist arguments are actually dangerous because they take advantage of the fact that so many Muslims are not being that crazy to sell the idea that Islam can be good. We don't need reformist arguments. The reformist arguments make Islam last longer. You know, I don't think without
a lot of people who won't be able to let go of Islam. And I think almost for them, like, okay, like my mom's one of these people, like she doesn't cover her hair or something. And I'll be like, why? Oh no, it doesn't really say that in Islam. They're all wrong. But she doesn't want to let go of her faith. And so I almost feel like,
but that's fine. That's fine. You know, I understand that, but it's not like your mom is all of a sudden, if I go show her like this is what Islam teaches, she's not going to go become a fundamentalist. That's what I think. Like, I think so I don't think like you need reformists. Reformist arguments are not making people more moderate or more liberal. It might give them some peace. They've already decided to live lives like that. It might give them some more peace, but we don't need them to be at that much peace, because the cost of reformist arguments is less people will challenge Islam and Islam will last longer. It's kind of like there's two types of viruses. One that if you get, it will just show its symptoms right away, and it shows that it's lethal and it could kill you. But there's another type of virus that it doesn't show its symptoms for a very long time, and a lot of people carry it without it, without it killing them. But they are carrying the virus in the environment, and those viruses are even more dangerous because you don't notice the dangers of it. And I think like reformists are basically that. Reformists are giving excuses for Islam for it to stay in society, and eventually it will grow and grow and grow. And once it has the upper hand, that's when it will go back to its fundamental roots. That's why reformists are so dangerous. I don't think if you take reformist arguments away, people will become more fundamentalist.
Do you think, but that's the thing, if every Muslim speaker, every Muslim advocate you're saying was 100% fundamentalist, because people really are uncomfortable with letting go of God. They're very uncomfortable with it. They want to keep it at like all costs. And so people like us, like we're just like, get rid of it, be a nihilist pretty much, whatever. That is a much harder thing for them to hop onto than for them to say, oh yeah, maybe it's not okay to marry a 9-year-old, because then they make up some mental gymnastics to keep the faith, but be a good person, and then go out and at least get rid of. I agree with you. I wish more than anything that we could go into these countries and use our arguments, and we're going to turn some people, especially in Iran. Like I feel even my dad now, because he's just so sick of he's an atheist. But even him, like I'll be like, renounce Islam, and he's like, something in me, I still can't. He's like, I still can't do that.
I don't expect all of these people to leave Islam. I just don't think we owe them reformers. I think when people are not beating their wives, when they're not becoming suicide bombers, it's not because of reformist arguments, even if they still stay a Muslim. I don't think these people are going to go back to like, okay, I don't want to beat my wife, but I have to because of Islam. If you don't want to beat your wife, you're not going to beat your wife. I think people are misunderstanding the direction. It's not like reformist arguments, therefore I don't beat my wife. It's first, I don't want to beat my wife, and then I go look for arguments that will confirm that I don't have to beat my wife. But I'm saying if you don't give...
can't get radicalized by fundamentalism. Like there are people who
I think the de-radicalization is... I think the de-radicalization is not coming from reformist argument. It's coming from modernization. It's coming for better ideas. It's coming for alternative ways of living. I think it's coming from people seeing other ways of life and competing with Islamic way of life and choosing that. The reformist argument is not doing that.
Fundamentalism can radicalize those more, like that's the thing. It can work both ways. So there are people who start off moderate and then they go fundamentalist. And if there was more fundamentalist voices, do you not think that would increase or boost those moderate? Like, I mean, there's people who are normal people and they go join ISIS. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's...
Yes, it might. But what does that more is having a lot of Muslim beliefs in a society, right? So here's the thing: Islam keeps going up and down when it comes to fundamental or not fundamental. But the thing that keeps it around is the fact that it's flexible. The fact that it's flexible, that it goes on a like more moderate tone when it's being challenged, makes it last so long and so widespread that it's there in society when it needs to become fundamental again. And I don't think we need to give them that excuse. I don't need to.
The problem is that I feel like it's a little idealistic, because I agree. But I think people are just not going. If their options are fundamentalism or nothing, there are some people who will go fundamentalist because they will not be able to let go.
I'm not saying nothing. They will still be nominal Muslims. I'm just saying that the reason Muslims who are still Muslim live better lives is because it's not because somebody came and a different interpretation of the Quran. It's because they saw other ways of life and they were like, I want that. That's the force that is making them live better lives, not because somebody came and lied to them about the Quran. And I don't think we should lie to people. I'm against lying. If you tell this Quranic verse that actually tells you to beat your wife, if you tell them like, no, it's not telling you that, I think you're lying to people, and that's not working. I mean, I see reformist argument as a defense. Yes,
it's a defense mechanism.
So, the reform refers, it's a defense mechanism. It's not actually making people more moderate. It's making people who've already decided to be more moderate more at peace with their Islam, and I don't think we owe them that.
I agree. But I'm trying to think of like my aunt. I agree with you, but I'm saying like my aunt, for instance, is Muslim, but she doesn't like but she just really is one of those, like, just wants God, prays, does all that stuff. And she found some weird whoever leader that's like, oh yeah, actually the Quran says not to cover your hair, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, yes, this aligns with, like you said, this aligns with how I want to live. I'm going to do it. But if she had no voices that were like that, and the only voices all told her to cover her hair, she might cover her hair, which I think is a worse outcome.
Yeah, but I think that I would bet that that would not happen. I would bet that most of these people, because they're exposed to other people that are living different lives, if they choose that, they would just not cover their hair, and they would just come up, with a struggle in their mind that, okay, maybe I'm sinning and stuff. But I don't think it's the reformist arguments that is making them not cover their hair. I think it's just basically watching other ways of life and being influenced, because Muslims are not like robots that you just put the Quran in them and they just follow it. Muslims are influenced by Islam, but they're also influenced by their friends, influenced by the podcasts they listen to, by the books that they read. And I just think that the Islam part, the more it is, the worse it is. I think, like, if you want to reduce the influence of Islam, don't replace the bad Islam with a good Islam, because there's no such thing as a good Islam. Just make the Islamic influence less, make other influences more pronounced in their mind, like more
like secularism and stuff. Yeah, it's just a harder thing
modernism
to like hop onto. So I agree with you. I guess I don't know, because it's all about the net. What's going to be the net positive or the net negative? Because fundamental voices turn people, it has an influence, because if there was no one being fundamental, then these people wouldn't have a place to go. But also reformist arguments are also turning people a little bit more reform. So and then the question is, if which outcome would be better overall? And I might agree with you that overall it may be better to not have the reform. Like, I actually do agree with you, because you remember, what's his name, Majid Nawaz is a hardcore, oh, let's reform. I disagree with him. I was like taking your position that why would we reform? Why would we make ourselves stuck? And then you're intellectually stuck because there's no good arguments. There's no good reformist arguments when the text literally says the opposite. But like you said, it ties into what people want to believe. So they're going to believe what they want to believe. But I do think that there would be a segment of that population that if they didn't have the justification for being moderate, they would be like, I have no choice but to go. Like, some of them, I'm not saying they'd be suicide bombers.
Yeah. Yes, but too small of a segment to make it too small of I think the net is usually in the favor of truth, right? So here's how I'll make my case. The reform argument is a lie. For the sake of making society better, we're telling them, okay, this is a dangerous lie. Let's take the dangerous lie and give them a less dangerous lie. And I'm here telling you that bet on the truth. You might find exceptions, like here, maybe if we lied to people, it would have been benefited. I'm just saying, you're asking the question, what would be as a net, like, average, which will be better? And what I'm advocating for, if we push for the truth, maybe in some rare cases it will cost us, it would have some cost, but on average, betting on the truth is better. It has better net results. And telling people lie, because the Islamic reform is filled with lies. It's telling people that, so why would anybody think that lying to people and telling them, please believe this lie instead of that lie, will have an average net positive result?
So interesting, because this is kind of the debate going on with Christianity right now, like with what Dawkins recently said, like where people say, like, you see, especially in these kind of higher level, like they'll say, whoa, it's like Jordan Peterson's the king of this. Like, he goes, oh yeah, maybe there's no literal God, but we want people to live as if there is. Because imagine if you took out the belief of Christianity, the argument is, I don't necessarily agree with it, I just think this is very interesting to think about. If you take out Christianity from the West, you're taking out those Christian values, which is what's keeping, so then the question is, do we lie? Do we lie and let these people believe in Christianity because they act better when they do? Like, and I say, first of all, I can't lie to myself and I can't lie to my children. But as an overall society, we've seen people like Douglas Murray start to have this hardcore atheist that now say, okay, I'm still an atheist, but I'm glad, like, what's that saying? I'm not a Christian, but I'm glad my mate is, so she doesn't steal the silver. Like, it's the same argument. It's kind of like, I don't agree with it necessarily, but that's what the debate is now, is like with all this, with the current conflict and stuff, is like, oh, these values are brought in by, or some people tie them into Judeo-Christian foundations. And if we take that away, it's kind of like, atheists, I think a lot of us struggle because community is very good for us as humans. And we haven't been able to create a community the way that like church can or a mosque can. And the problem is, no matter how much we want a community, if we don't believe, if there is not that unifying force taking us to church or taking us to mosque, we don't have anything strong enough to bring that community element in. So religion has those kinds of benefits. Now, the question is, there's two questions. Is religion true and is it beneficial? Well, true, I mean, we're both on the same page that it's not. Is it beneficial? I think we're both on also the same page that it's not, but it obviously has served an adaptive purpose for so many cultures throughout history. And it gives people, I mean, people who are religious tend to be more at peace. There was even that study that they were more easily able to deal with COVID. It seems to have at least some personal benefit. And the question is, like, I would rather know the truth than live in a lie. But like, for instance, atheists have higher IQ. Religious people tend to be more happy. Would you rather be happy or smarter? Like, I don't know. I don't have a choice, but maybe I'd rather be.
So a couple of points. First of all, religions do have benefits, but it's just the cost outweighs the benefits. And there are, whatever benefits religion has, there are ways to get to those benefits without the cost that religion comes with it. Because religion comes with a baggage, comes with a lot of what we can look at religion and figure out what it has that has some benefits and just remove the religious belief. The belief part in the gods is the harmful part, right? And also, when you say the studies that show some religious people are at peace, there are so many contradicting data on this. But also drugs also bring people peace. So again, it is true that religion brings some people peace, but at what cost? Can we get those? Because with modern secular ways, we could basically have those better ways that doesn't come with all the mumbo jumbo that religion
can we have all
with,
of it though? Like, can we have community? Can we have those things? Like, I'm not saying one way or another. Can we actually coalesce people enough in order? And then the problem is, human beings, unless they're like wired more like us, they're going to always want answers to the chaos. So I notice in my generation, people are turning away from religion, but now they turn to crystals or astrology. Oh, what month were you born? Are you Capricorn? And these don't have the problems of religion, but they're just as stupid. In fact, they're more stupid because they don't have any like of the lasting cultural, or it's just like, oh, if you're born on this day, or now there's like numerology where it's like the day you're born, you can find out your personality, or, oh, if you do this crystal, like these people are, because people always want an answer to something to help them.
We have answers. Well, those are not the good answers, but we have answers. We have better answers when it comes to explaining the world. We have scientists, we have science, we have, when it comes to values, we have liberal values.
But it doesn't give people that comfort. It doesn't give people that comfort of like, oh, the universe, like now people with manifestation, the one of the comforting things about God is that you believe there's this person who loves you.
But we don't. Okay, but there are other sources of comfort, and sometimes not being comfortable is important because the universe. Right. So it's not like we don't owe people comfort all the time. There is utility to always feeling like, okay, there is nothing that's going to support me. I have to stand up on my own 2 feet. Like there is also utility in that. But also when it comes to community and feeling a sense of purpose and believing in something bigger than yourself, I think the best modern answer that we have to and that is civic nationalism. Civic nationalism, which is not like the kind of like ethno or nationalism or the kinds of nationalism that is very crazy and radical. Civic nationalism is in line with liberal values, and again gives people a sense of teamwork. It gives people a sense of working on something greater than them. It gives people a sense of belonging. So we have that instead of religion. I think we should appeal to that. Also, one more thing with regards to people feeling less at peace because they don't have any religion. Part of that is because they're not normal and society is pushing back against them. Just like it was not very peaceful. It's not very peaceful to be gay, because it's not because there's anything within being gayness that makes you not at peace. It's just because the stress that society puts at you that makes being gay or being atheist or an ex-Muslim
no, because when a loved one dies, you want to believe they're going to be in heaven. Like that brings you peace. When something's happening, you praying, although it's useless, and if you look at any studies, it's useless, but it brings people at peace. But meditation can do that too. So you're right. There are these alternative things. I think the difference between you and me is you have much more optimism about the general population than I do. I think a lot of people are much stupider than you and me, and they're not going to let go of these things.
Like even if they're not very intelligent, the trend is in our favor,
That's
right?
true.
And I think, yeah, and also I think I give people the benefit. Here's the thing: the belief that I'm advocating for is not that there's no cost associated with people. Like my mom died. Okay, now I know that I'm never going to see my mom ever again. Well, that's painful, right?
Yeah.
Should we get rid of this pain? At what cost? Like, okay, yeah, if I didn't have that pain, would that be better? Yeah, that would be better, that if I didn't have that pain. But we are losing so much more by spreading lies. Like, why do we have to just appeal to every single desire that we have?
Yeah, no, you're right. But
And
we shouldn't
that, given that it's so harmful. Yeah, no. So my point.
Are we going to be able to eradicate them without replacing it with astrology or something else, or manifestation? Yes, that's the new thing. If you think
it's not that black and white. We don't have. It's not that. Are we going to be able to eradicate it completely? My point is that if we go from 5% atheism to 6% atheism, or to 7% atheism, you're like, oh, it will never be 100%. Well, I'm not talking about 100%. Of course, like it's not like we lose if we don't get to 100%. We're still winning if we get from 5% to 10%. A society that more people in it have more beliefs that is a reflective of reality is a better society. If you make your goal that in this society, the true people who believe in actual truth is 5%, if I could get it to 7%, if that's your goal, then that's achievable. If the way you're thinking, like, oh, it will never be 100%, then we will never do no activism will ever be able to get to 100% success.
Yeah, no, so look, I'm an atheist. Oh, you're free. Sorry. I'm an atheist advocate too. That's why I got this book, because I was fighting with people on stream about like accepting this. But I'm kind of looking at where, and like, I'm in this generation. I see people that are like, yeah, I don't believe in religion, but now I believe in reincarnation. Well, that's just as stupid, but is it less harmful? Okay. So like maybe, you know, instead of sitting here telling you how the universe and the crystals aren't working either, fine, believe that over this. Like, I love pushing people to believe in the things we want to believe in, but and I think our work is very important. I guess I'm just less optimistic about, like, okay, like for instance, I don't believe in free will either. That is a very hard thing for people to grasp. Like even people who read everything, they know there's no way, they still are like, well, I feel it. It's hard to get people. And also that belief also makes me think there's literal gene. There's what's that gene that makes you more likely to believe in spirituality or these kinds of things? There are so much wiring in people that makes makes it very hard to get rid of this. Now you're right. Whatever we can do, let's do. But like my point back to like maybe reformists, or maybe even like, is it better if 80% of the religious people now move to crystals? It's just as stupid. It's as much of a lie, but at least there's not the misogyny, race, whatever. So I'm kind of looking at what's more practical. Like, am I going to be able to pull a person at church and tell them there's no free will, evolution? Like even my parents who are pretty liberal, like when I actually explain to them, like, oh yeah, our ancestors are monkeys. No matter what I tell them, they're never going to accept that our ancestors were monkeys. Like they're just never going. They're just like,
well, they're not monkeys. We share an ancestor with monkeys.
Yeah. We share, but even that's what I mean. Like our cousin, I like chimpanzees. I say this is our cousin. They say "kheli khar shudi." Like they just literally like don't. They will.
Right.
They will. People.
Well, again, it's. I want to move to some other questions regarding OnlyFans and stuff, but before we move there, I just want to state this, okay? All I'm saying is that an individual who has more beliefs that are closer to reality is an individual that is probably on average going to live a more fruitful life, like a more successful life, if your beliefs are closer to reality. And a society with people that have beliefs that are closer to reality is a society that is going to be able to progress faster and better, right? On average. I'm not saying like, are we going to make everybody smart, everybody have the right beliefs? I'm just saying on average, and this is a step-by-step, this is a slow process. And I am very optimistic. I mean, it's easy to be optimistic if you look at our history, look at where we are compared to even 100 years ago. We are progressing really fast, and we are progressing because we have better beliefs that are matching reality. So if you go look at one person like, oh yeah, this guy left Islam and now he believes in crystals, okay, yeah, but those are examples. I'm looking at the longer term trend, and the longer term trend looks really good.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you one question. I also agree with you on everything. I'm just lawyery, and I like to just argue for no reason.
Okay.
But the one question I'm asking you is, would you change, because I think about this, would you change your mind if there was conclusive evidence that somehow this belief as a lie is beneficial at some level? Or would you say the truth outweighs that? Because it's very easy if you say the benefit and the truth is on the same side. That's a very easy thing. Obviously, if it's more beneficial and it's the truth, let's do it. But would you change your mind if those two things weren't aligned? The truth was not necessarily the most beneficial, or would you always say the truth is more important?
No, the truth is only important to me because I think the truth gets us to a higher amount of well-being. But the end goal is higher well-being, not the truth. The truth is a tool.
Praying 30 minutes a day actually boosted people, like just really had a better impact, made people more at peace. Would you then advocate for that, even though it's a lie?
Well, I have to look at, I can't just look at it in isolation. I have to look at everything else it does, all the consequences of having that beliefs, and also over the long term. So I can't just look at the specific benefit that the prayer has. I have to look at having this belief in society, what are the long-term consequences of having that? So I can't just look at that data in isolation.
Yeah.
Let me.
What if you had what if a manifestation and reincarnation and Jainism became the new thing? And even though it's just as wrong, let's say world peace and people just it was a better society.
What if the benefits outweigh the cost? How about this? What if there was a lie with that the benefits over the long term, the benefits outweigh the cost? Yes, I would be in favor of that lie.
So you're taking like a utilitarian.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a rule utilitarian. So I don't defend the truth for the sake of the truth.
Okay.
I defend the truth because I think the truth gets us to the highest level of well-being.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Just curious.
Are you the same? Like, are you also?
Yeah, I am also the same. Yeah, generally, yes. Obviously, they give you those thought experiments that you're like, okay, I haven't thought about it. If you get too deep into these philosophies, then you're like, I don't know anything. but generally, yes, I agree with you. And like, if there was a lie,
even then, it would be difficult. Even then, it would be difficult for you to defend the correct lie without knowing the truth.
Yeah, that's the point, is that sometimes I think like if there was something that I can't make myself believe a lie. I wish I could, but I can't. And so sometimes I think like if there was a belief that I could have that was a lie, but would be better off for my life, like it'd be nice. So I would take that over the truth. But me and you are such like truth seekers that it's really hard to even like think of a world where that would be the case. But some people make that argument, and then I have to stop and think, okay, well, here's what's true and here's what's like thing. And then some people take the thing like, oh, well, we're okay with that. But not like, I struggle with this when the sense of finding a purpose. Finding a purpose to me is very arbitrary. Like, it's like I could just make something up and it's like there's nothing real in it. There's nothing concrete in it. So I'm kind of nihilistic. Like, I'm kind of like, yeah, we're here our genes were here, we don't really know why, and that's it. I have no greater purpose. When I die, I don't matter. Like, these are the truth. And to me, I'm able to cope with it, but my neighbor might be depressed and suicidal if they believe that. So it's different.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, the universe doesn't have to have any meaning for us to be able to give it meaning. Like, I think a lot of people are asking this question wrong. Like, oh, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning? Does the universe give us a purpose? Like, I think that's one of the most dangerous thing about religion, because life doesn't give us meaning. We give life meaning. And if people understand that, like, we shouldn't have a crisis of meaning. Without God and religion, we should have the opposite of the crisis of meaning, because then we become
the meaning.
Each one of us will become meaning factories. We will be, because if we have God and religion, then there is one purpose, one meaning. And without God and religion, then we should have the opposite problem. We should be like, okay, we have too much meaning because everybody is becoming a meaning factory of themselves, giving life meaning by themselves.
Arbitrary. So actually, Cosmic Skeptic, Alex O'Connor, he's a big YouTuber. He was just talking about this on trigonometry, and I like what he said. He said the problem with coming up with your own meaning is if you have one guy here who says my meaning is just staring at the wall, and this guy says my meaning is saving children. now they're equal because it's just whatever you decide and whatever you feel like. You could find meaning in being a bad person. You could find meaning in being the most, like you can just pick anything, and it's just kind of whatever you choose.
But no, it's not, okay. First of all, you know, something that is made up, it's not necessarily bad. Okay, and most of the things that have helped us live better lives are made up, like contracts, like countries, like companies, right? So that's not, yeah. But also, yeah, we could create our own meanings, okay? But the meanings that we create could be, there's synergy in them. Like the meaning that I have could help that when I move towards the direction that I want to go, my goals, that process might help you. Maybe, for example, I wrote a book and you read it, and you are going towards your own meaning, your goal, and you moving toward that direction is helping me. For example, you're now, you know, on my show and we're having a very interesting conversation. So these meanings can be compatible and helping each other, but there will be few people will have that they will define meanings for themselves that will be hurtful and harmful to the rest of society. But the good thing is we got lucky through an evolutionary process that we could, there's more of us. There's more of us out there, that more people out there that when they define their meanings, they come up with things that is helpful to other people. And for the sake of harm reduction, we identify these other people who are like, yeah, I get meaning out of life by killing people. We identify them, we isolate them, and we remove them for society in a way that they're not harmful to us. It's working out very well. I don't know why people are complaining. What's the issue here?
I guess the question is, like, if somebody if meaning is just, it kind of takes the, like, okay, so let's think of altruism. People find meaning in helping other people. That's great. Everyone thinks, oh my gosh, like this person. But once you realize that that's just because of, you know, like it's not really you, it's that this, and it's just your neurons and your synapses and kin selection and group selection and whatever, it kind of sucks it's like the free will thing. Like for a lot of people, now I find peace with it, but some people, if they realize that they're not really in control of things, that actually seems to have.
They are more in control of things. Okay, here's the thing, it's the framing. Okay, here's the thing, it's the framing, is how you introduce this to people. Okay, the same ideas can be framed in different ways, and the framing is in your control. Okay, so you don't lose control without God or religion. You have more control. When it comes, if God was the source of meaning, what would be the meaning of life? It would be to praise God and worship him. Mm-hmm. That is like, and God has decided that for you without your consent. That is having no control. If God or the universe is not giving you meaning, that means I get to choose what is the meaning of life. That gives you more control. How are you losing control? You have more control now over your life.
Like, let's look at like free will, for example. I'm reading Determined by Robert Sapolsky or whatever, so that's why it's on my mind. Some people, but overall, when they looked at studies, people who believe they are more in control of their destiny, even though they're really not, those people, it tends to be beneficial to them. But like to me, I'm one of those people that I'm like, oh, now I don't judge anybody. Now I just think of people as lucky or unlucky. I don't think anyone deserves praise for their accomplishments, and I don't think anyone deserves moral condemnation for their things. Right. That to me is a very peaceful, unifying belief. But to a lot of people, that just completely wrecks their worldview, and people are very uncomfortable with that. People, we're wired in one specific way, and I don't think everybody is like us. And so to pretend, oh, everyone's going to find this so peaceful that they're in no control of their action. That's people.
Not everyone. I didn't say everyone. We're talking about net. I'm talking about net. Like if you look, you talk about studies. Okay, if you look at where people are the most happier, right? Countries where there's less religion. Yeah, people are happier on average, right? So again, correlation, causation. I'm not saying this is correlation is causation. I'm just saying that it shows that the causation on the other way around is not necessarily true, right? That religion doesn't necessarily. But here's the thing: you're comparing two different delusions. You're comparing the God delusion with the free will delusion, right?
I'm just using it. God sometimes taking away delusion might be harmful. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just arguing that they could.
I agree with you with the free will delusion, but the good thing about the free will delusion is that you cannot get rid of it. So the God delusion and the free delusion, I don't think they're comparable here, because the God delusion is not so innate within us. Like we could get rid of it. We could get rid of it and still have happy lives. I agree with you that the free will delusion, if you were able to get rid of that, it would be devastating. It will destroy you. But the good thing about the free will delusion is that it's even once you
learn it, it doesn't really change your life.
It's still there. There's two delusions: the free will delusion and the I delusion, the identity that there is such a thing as an I. These are so powerful that even no matter how much you read about it or think about it, 5 seconds later, it will still come back. You will still feel that you have free will. So I don't think you have to worry about that. Like, if people are having a crisis because they realize that free will is a delusion, just tell them, don't think about it. The delusion will come back like that. Nobody.
Yeah, I know. Some people, what I mean is people resist like letting go of these things. And so God is one of them. I agree with you. Free will delusion is like, no matter how much you read about it, the next time someone cuts you off in traffic, you say, fuck you, even though it's not their fault, whatever. Yeah. But with also like, even like us atheists, I don't know about you, but sometimes if like I'm about to get in an accident, I don't pray to anyone in particular, but it's almost like an innate thing to be like, God, please don't get me. I don't think that the religiosity or the spirituality, like adaptive trait that humans have taken on, I think that is just as embedded, maybe not just as embedded, but it is very deeply embedded into us as a species too.
Yeah, not God necessarily, but a higher power, yes. And also finding patterns where there's no pattern. Those are part of our brain, wiring of our brain. But here's the beautiful thing about being an atheist. There's nothing about atheism that tells you that you don't say like, oh God, that forces you not to say, oh God, please help me, right? Yeah. Like when my mom was on her deathbed in the hospital, one time I went into her room and she quickly removed her headphone, and I'm like, what is it? She's like, Armin, don't make fun of me, but I'm listening to the azan, the call to prayer in Islam, because it helps with my pain. And I'm like,
go for it.
Why are you embarrassed with that? Like, she told me, Armin, I know this is bullshit, but it's really helping me with my pain. I'm like, well, use it. What the hell? Like, why would you hide that? Like, the part of like, I don't have any problem with religious rituals. I think it's fantastic when sometimes atheists with Christian backgrounds, they go to church or go to the synagogue because they enjoy the community. They go because they love the rituals. But that's the harmful part of religion, is the actual belief part, not the other part. And actually, that proves my point, because
can you have the community without the belief?
Yep. You could say, I'm a cultural Christian, or I'm a cultural Muslim. I'm a cultural Jew. Because if you do that, then you have kept all the parts that you find enjoyable without the harmful part. The belief part is the harmful part. This is the secularization versus reform, because reform tries to change the appearance but keep the belief. And I say the belief is the problem. I say, if you really need to, keep the shell, but get rid of the belief, because it's the wrong belief. You could go to a church and sing all the Christian hymns if you enjoy that and be part of the community. As long as you don't believe in the God, that's the harmful part that you have managed to get rid of.
God is what brings people into sing those things and get that. For most people, like there's your mom and there are certain people, but the reason that atheists don't have our atheist synagogue, or I mean, I think groups like what you're doing is really great, but I think that it's so much harder to mobilize people without there being some higher power or some higher calling to unify them.
That's what you're saying is true right now. I'm talking about a long process. Look at long
process. I think you could be right.
Yes, I don't think like a lot of you like, oh, these people can't get rid of the religion. I'm like, okay, maybe not her, but maybe her grandson will be able to. But look at the Jewish community, for example. There's so many Jews who don't believe in God or any of these stories, and still they go to synagogue, still they do their prayers because they find value in the community and the rituals. I mean, if they can do it, why can't other Christians? A lot of Christians do that as well. So many atheists celebrate Christmas. So I think Muslims are so far behind this, and I think it will eventually happen with so many Muslims as well. I think this is why I support secularization. I don't support reform, because I'm still, and in fact, that this will speed up atheism. If you tell a lot of people that, you know what, you don't need to get rid of your rituals, you don't need to get rid of your practices, if you get rid of your belief, because a lot of people keep the belief because they think that if I get rid of the belief, I have to get rid of all of these things I enjoy.
But
I'm like,
belief
no,
gives the rituals meaning for a lot of them. Like it's one thing,
well,
like what percentage of Christians at, like, pick any church, what percentage of them don't believe in God? Maybe like 1% of churchgoers. Like, it's not like
low right now. It's low right now. I'm saying long term, it could be, the Jewish community has shown that long term this could be very high.
But
we
even
have atheist rabbis now.
The Jews most of the Jews either don't go to synagogue and they're just like live like us, or they're like they do. So these like Ben Shapiro type communities. Like, I actually think Ben is one of the ones who, I don't know if he actually believes, he just does the community part. I think there's a lot of them that maybe do that secretly, but they don't openly, because that belief has to be what unifies those people. So I love your optimism, but I wonder if there's a day where all these people are going to go into church and do the fun part of worshiping while they all know they're worshiping to nothing.
It doesn't have to be all. It just has to be a higher percentage. It just has to be a higher percentage.
I think there's more of a chance that churches and the community and all that will leave with the religion, as opposed to will keep that. And like, I don't know how many people are going to keep.
We need ritual. Here's the thing: we need rituals. Okay.
So we need new ones that we need to create that are outside of religion.
It will be a mix of both. We will come up. Some people will be so attached to their childhood rituals that even if they become atheists, they will just stay with that. Some people will come up with new rituals. Some people will figure, like, you know what, I don't need rituals, right? But I'm just saying, this is if you look at people and like, oh yeah, I don't see my grandma coming out of this. Like, yeah, well, give it 50 years. Don't give, maybe not her, maybe her grandchild, maybe her grandchild's grandchild. Right? Yeah. This is a very slow, I mean, it seems slow because we just, we live like 80 years or so. Yeah, but if you look at long, this is actually happening faster. Here, let me give you some hope as a fellow Iranian. In Iran, this is data. I will show you this. I will send you this. Over one generation, in 40 years, half of the population of a country with more than 5 million people went from having a religion to not having a religion. Mm-hmm. Half of a population within one lifetime
of the regime, though, and I don't think because they read this and they're like, oh, there's no God.
Yeah. It's because of the regime, but it shows that it's possible. It shows that people will. It shows the potential. Is,
will that be replaced with, like, look at the evolution of religion, like from Zeus to Thor. It seems like people always want to believe in something bigger than themselves. And unfortunately, with atheism, we don't have that thing to tell them why they're here. We don't know why we're here. Nobody knows. They just come up with a story.
Okay, but we don't have to look for whys. We could teach people to be comfortable with not knowing. Here's the thing: this idea, this whole anxiousness over not knowing things. We learn this from religion. People who are born with no religion, they don't have this anxiety. So this is a learned anxiety, which can be unlearned. It can be unlearned. And again, it doesn't have to be all or none. You say, like, people leave Islam and they have other stupid beliefs. Okay, it's okay. Even if somebody has 100 wrong beliefs, if they go from having 100 wrong beliefs to having 99 wrong beliefs, you can be like, oh my God, they look at all these stupid beliefs that they still have. That is progress. They just lost one wrong belief. That is improvement. That's good for them and good for society.
We're in the age of information. We have all this information. We have social media with all this, but our brains are not equipped. Our brains don't look for the scientific method. That's why conspiracy theories are very attractive, because our brains look for emotional responses. So now we see, look at all these conspiracy beliefs, COVID, all these people are more likely to believe. Like, I used to think the marketplace of ideas, the better ideas will win over bad ideas. Then I realized the ideas that typically win are the ones that comfort the typical human brain, which isn't the scientifically accurate one, which is the one that's more emotional, conspiratorial, easy. Oh, there is this global cabal, evil people like that are the World Economic Forum. Like, these people, their brains are wired to be more likely. Now, things like education and stuff can change this, but when we're looking on a mass scale, I mean, look at what's happened as we've given people more information. Some people have just gone crazier. You see what's going on social media.
Don't just look at it from a mass scale. Also look at it from a long-term perspective. Still, are we not more better off compared to 100 years ago?
Oh, yes.
100
yes.
years ago. Okay.
But I mean, look at
so
something like COVID. Look at how many people are anti-vax now. Look at how many people don't trust any science.
But people had more wrong beliefs before. Like, you're like, oh my God, so many people have anti-vax views. Okay. But people are on average more informed and have less wrong beliefs. We look at our own lifetime, I think people are stupid. But if you look at compare the same people that you're labeling as stupid with the average people 100 years from now, they will look like geniuses.
That's true. Yeah, we're going to be very stupid at some time. Like me and you are going to be like, we're going to be like,
yeah. People will look at these videos and like,
very stupid. It's like when you look at very old, because some of the most intelligent like philosophers back then, you read some of their beliefs, you're like, you're so stupid, but they're not. They were the smartest people at the time, and that's going to be this book at some point.
Well, that would be okay. We would in the future, we would be smart enough not to judge us like we're judging. But we would be less judgmental. We're like, okay. They were working with a lot less, so it's understandable.
I always think of it as like how we view people that had slaves now might be the way people view us and what we do to animals and factory farming. They're going to think,
I don't think so.
What's wrong with these people?
No, I don't think so. I think the future will be, when they look at the past, they will be so less judgmental. I think. I mean, they would be better than us, but they wouldn't judge it. They wouldn't be like, oh, what the
True. I agree with you,
they would be like, of course they would act like that.
It's going to be crazy to them that we just like do the things we do to, for instance, animal. Like, I think there's a time where people are going to be like, they're not going to judge us in the way that we judge people in the past. I don't judge people for having slaves. Like, I would probably have slaves if I was at that time. I don't judge people for those things, but we're going to, the way that we think right now, we're so moral. I think as morality evolves, we're like, there's going to be a time where the way we act now is going to be entirely super immoral compared to what people are going to think at the time.
Yeah. By the way, how much time do you have? Because I don't want to. I have like
another half an hour. Yeah.
Okay. Can we take a quick washroom break? I need a washroom break. I don't know if you need a washroom break.
I want water. So.
Okay. Be right back then.
Okay.
Okay. This is one of the most interesting conversations I have had, guys, for a very long time. I could do this forever. Okay, Ramo, thank you so much for being a member. And Alex is saying, Jazz, have you ever been accused of being a Nipo? I don't know what this is. I will leave this for when she's back. Thank you so much, Sir Dr. Whitemeat, for the super chat and for the support. And then Zahiar Baker, why don't you? Oh, okay. So I will leave this for later. She's back. Oh, you're muted.
I was going to say, yeah, I agree with you. I think obviously we've been progressing this whole time, so I think we will progress. In our lifetimes, and I'm one of those people that when I die, I don't care because I don't know what's happening. So I think I just think very short term in that way.
Okay, can I say something to you that might sound crazy? Don't try to take really good care of your health, because the question on whether or not we're going to die is not as certain as it used to be. If we die, we might be the last people who die. So really take care of your health.
Okay. I've just had some heavy carrots instead of chips.
That's good.
Fruit is one of those things that fruit and vegetables comes to me more in Farsi because I never eat them unless my parents. So I always think I was for a long time. I'm like, what is Hulu in English? I'm like, peach. I'm like, I think of it more in Farsi because
Farsi, yeah.
My parents are always giving me fruit. No one else gives me fruit, so I don't know.
Yeah. It's not that hard, by the way, to be like, the main things are drink a lot of water, sleep a lot, exercise, and just don't smoke and eat good food.
Yeah, no, literally. And that's one of the great things about my job switch is I sleep. Today I had to wake up kind of early just because I want to go on a walk. And it was the first time I had to turn my alarm. And I said, I cannot believe this would have been every day of my life if I had a regular job.
You know what? I have to apologize. I was thinking, why am I making her awake? Like, because I look at the stats on my YouTube channel and I decide what's the best time to go live. I'm like, I shouldn't have done this to her.
Oh, no,
like,
no.
I should have just done.
Was fine. 10:30 is fine. 8:30. But because I wanted to go on a walk, because I live in Arizona, and it gets very hot now. So I have to go like 7 a.m. or 8. And so I wouldn't be able to like shower and everything before. But usually the only times now that I have to set an alarm is if I have a flight or like something like this. And I just think it's so nice to not be tired. Like I'm not tired. And it's because I have such a privilege and a luxury to sleep. And that's because I decided to do OnlyFans as opposed to go to office.
Yeah, I hope people get to enjoy that. I hope like people get to see what life is like when you go to sleep and don't set the alarm and you just wake up when you're just stop being tired. That's fantastic. It's
amazing. Yeah, but I understand it's a privilege and it's not something most people can afford to do.
Yeah, I hope. Well, with AI, it might come soon for most people. I don't know. But can I? I was going to challenge you on some things. This was just so much fun. By the way, this is one of the most intelligent, fun conversation I have had in a very, very long time.
Hop me back on. I could play devil's advocate and we could debate different things. I even agree with you. I need to find something I disagree with you on, maybe right now, and I can be more.
I was going to get to that. So, again, a lot of the things I'm going to say right now are things that I might not. I just want to challenge you to see what you say because I don't know actually. I'm still thinking about these things. So, you consider yourself an advocate for sex work? Is that correct? Would that be accurate? What does that mean?
I mean, I try to kind of remove a lot of the discrimination and societal stigma towards this community.
But does that mean that you? Okay, on top of that,
no, I don't say that all women should go do this, or I'm not telling women this is the best job ever, go do it. In fact, when girls come to me and say, should I start OnlyFans? Most of the time I say no. I think it's but I also think as a society, things like decriminalizing sex work seems to actually have better outcomes, like even from a utilitarian perspective and a consequentialist lens. And I don't think that sex workers should be discriminated against in the sense that they can't have PayPal or these other or Sestify. There's legislation that gets passed, or even censorship on the internet. I mean, I'm not against it in every circumstance, but stuff like that is kind of where I hone in on my activism.
But do you recommend? I know not all women, but do you like suggest to women to go into this line of work or no?
Not most women, but there are some women like that are temperamentally like me suited for it. And I don't think it's bad. So I think there are so many women. I think about all the time how many women are suffering in their 9-to-5 because they're too scared to do what I do, that they would be happier if they did what I did. But I also think there's a lot of women who are doing what I do that don't like it and don't have any other choice. And I want for those women to be able to go do something else. But a lot of times that stigma and that shame keeps them here. So I think the shame and the stigma doesn't help the women who don't want to do it or the women who want to do it.
Right. But is there some downsides to it that women should, because the criticism is that I hear is that women are told like, oh, go do this. There's a lot of money in it, empowerment, freedom, take control over your body. And they don't tell you about all the downsides to it. Yeah. And women go into this and then all of a sudden they were like, I wish people told me this. I wouldn't have done this if I knew this beforehand. So
yeah, no, I'm one of those people who I talk about the downside. So I like to separate it into two. There's the moral question and then there is the, is it good for you? So I try to fight against.
Are they the same thing?
No, like, and I use this on a podcast. Is eating a donut immoral? Like, is it? I would say no. Like, it doesn't have the stigma. Eating a donut may be bad for you, but no one's like, you whore because you had a donut. So I try to fight against moral condemnation. Like, for instance, I'm very against casual sex and hookup culture. I don't do any of that because I think it's unhealthy, especially for me. Now, there are some people who have less restricted sociosexuality. It's a smaller percentage of people. It seems to be like 10% of women and a larger percent of men. So people are different. But I tell people there's nothing wrong. If I want to go sleep with 100 men tomorrow, I don't think I'm doing anything immoral. But I don't think that's healthy. That's not good for me. It's like going and eating a bag of donuts. That's how I think about it. It's not.
I mean, we're utilitarians. That would, if it's harmful, that would make it immoral. If having sex with 100 men is bad for your health, then based on our definition of morality as utilitarians, that would make it immoral. I know people would not come.
I'm not a utilitarian. I'm a moral non-cognitivist for the most part, which is in like the sense of I believe all morals are just expressions of like emotion and like you know what I'm talking about. What is it called? Emotivism. So I'm not 100% a utilitarian, but what I'm really trying to fight against is most the societal. So while you could be right that, okay, in your view, eating a donut is not the same thing as a woman who sleeps with 100 men, the consequences for doing those in today's society is going to fall disproportionately on that woman. And I'm trying to fight against that.
Okay, so given that, I mean, we're using, when it comes to morality or right or wrong, we're using different, frameworks. So let's just talk about harmful, or is it harmful or not harmful, rather than whether it's right or wrong, right? So do you think it's harmful to, for example, sleep with 100 men?
For most people, yeah, but there is also maybe like 100 is a lot, but let's just say having casual sex. I do think, like, let's say 80 to 90% of people will fall into this category. Like, let's say monogamy and polyamory. I have some polyamorous friends. I'm more monogamous leading. Do we create a society where we stigmatize that 10% and we force them into us? Or is a better society a society where people do what's conducive to their own well-being, which for a small percentage of people might be polyamory, and for the majority is going to be monogamy? That's kind of how I think about it.
How about not stigmatizing, but warning?
Warning, I agree.
Like,
yes.
Okay.
So if you go on my Instagram right now, I shared a Substack from my friend Farha, who talks about she's 24 years old and a virgin, and she actually talks about like the downsides of having sex and how having consent is the only framework around sex almost leaves some people vulnerable to having unhealthy casual sexual encounters. So I do think that's why I say, like, I think there are downsides to having casual sex, but we're also in a society, especially in my segment of the internet, where people say, you're a whore, you're never going to find love, you just did, like, that I think is wrong. So it's one, it's not true. And two, I think it's harmful and it's misogynistic and it disproportionately affects women.
Okay, so that method of expression, and also that it's black and white, and it's also impolite. But what if instead of saying, "Oh, you're never going to find love," somebody told you, "Being on OnlyFans will make your chances of finding a meaningful relationship and somebody to marry reduces your chances significantly if you have that history that you were on OnlyFans." What about that?
I would say that's contingent upon your value structure. So like for me, I would find someone that aligns with my values, and those don't align with my values. So even before I did OnlyFans, I always tell this story one time, because I didn't have Instagram anything before OnlyFans. And I was on it, and this guy's like, "Oh, I love that you're not one of those girls showing off your body on the internet." I never talked to him again because I'm not attracted to that. So I do tell women, if you're going to start this, make sure that these are your values. I don't want any guy who has a problem with me having an OnlyFans. But some people will. And yeah, so I don't think it didn't lower my chances significantly, because those same people that wouldn't date me now, I didn't want to date them anyway. So I think it's dependent on the person, which is why I always tell people, I cannot say do it or don't do it. It depends on so many things, whether you should do it. I really am against people at like 18, 19 doing it, because you're so young still and it can have lifelong consequences. Same way I would say you shouldn't get married at 18 either. You shouldn't do anything at 18 that could have these lifelong consequences. So I agree with that.
Right. So the information that some people, again, I don't know, I'm also still thinking about this. The information that a lot of people say that people who advocate for the normalization of this industry leave out is that the vast majority of men, especially what they call higher value men, even if they're okay with you as a person, they will support you for being a sex worker. They will like, you go girl, yes, good for you for not letting society control you. But when it comes to it, they themselves would not, they might date you, but they would not pick you for marriage or a long-term meaningful relationship, somebody that they will build a family with, have children with. It's just this is such a vast majority of men, even the ones who are being encouraging, that your chances of finding, eventually making a meaningful relationship and eventually having a family becomes so small. And I mean, even if you're fine with that, I think like what they're saying is that a lot of girls are not told that before they move into this.
But I would say, I mean, this is changing far quicker than belief in God and how societal attitudes are shifting. And so like me coming from academia is highly liberal. So for instance, me, I've had no issues. Like people like wanting this long-term serious relationships with me. Now I'm also well-spoken. I'm smart. I have all these things that aren't typical of a typical OnlyFans worker or whatever. But I don't think this idea that men have a problem with it is as vast as these guys make it out to be, because societal attitudes toward this have shifted. It's becoming far more mainstream and the more common. It's like 20 years, I always say this, 10 years ago, people said, oh, if you have 2 gay dads, the kid is going to get bullied. Now, I mean, depends on where you are, but if you're in Los Angeles and there's a kid and he has 2 dads, no one's bullying him, because our attitudes about gay people have shifted so much, and our attitudes towards things like sex work are rapidly shifting, which is also manifested in male preferences for women.
So you think like 10 years from now, like in school, people ask like, oh, what does your mom do? What does your mom do? And the next kid would be like, oh yeah, my mom is on OnlyFans. And everybody would be like, oh, okay, cool. Next person. Like nobody.
No, well, just like you said, it's not 100%. It doesn't just automatically, right. But 10 years from now, it'll be less stigmatized than it is today. And 10 years from now, we might be in some AI, like everyone will have fake porn or something. We're shifting so fast, rapidly, both societally and technology wise, how common this is becoming, how mainstream this is becoming, how much the disassociating morality with purity or all of those things. Like there's a lot of people who find it very even like, oh, oh, you left law and you do this, and they love that I do these debates, and they are turned on by the fact that I can advocate, like being an advocate in this. So while in this society, let's say it's 15% of men that are okay with it, in 10 years it might be 30% of men. You're still going to have maybe 70.
But that's still low enough for you, for a person right now, like let's say an 18-year-old girl right now that is looking at Jasmine like, oh my God, she's so inspiring, she's so intelligent, she's so beautiful, she's so successful, I want that. Okay. And because you inspired her, she gets into this industry, and you're saying 10 years from now it will be 30%. Okay, now she's going to think, if I have I want to have a child, but if I have a child, my child is going to be embarrassed of who her mom is. You know, so this is changing rapidly, but it's still, based on your estimate, it's still not rapid. It's 10 years from now.
I kind of made up those numbers, but let's say those numbers are true.
Let's say, yeah.
This is like going to law. Like when a woman comes and becomes a lawyer, this is what like the red pill says. Now all of a sudden they make, because an educated woman is far less likely to be with an uneducated man. So would you say that she's lowering her chances of finding a mate because she's putting herself in this now in a space where only 10% of men are as educated as her, and she wants somebody as educated as her? So a lot of times,
I mean, she is lowering her chance. She is lowering her chances, but she might know that, and she will like, I don't care. I want my education.
That's my point. I'm just saying. So I agree with you. We should tell people, but the problem is, I think all of us are lowering our chances anyway. I think Destiny went viral for one time saying, if you go on Tinder and you say no crackheads, you're lowering your. You want to be selective anyway, and women are very selective. So for me now, the thing that I think is crucial is that you have to have these beliefs yourself. Like me. I only wanted that 15-30% anyway. I don't want that 70%. I never wanted that. So I already was choosing a certain type of guy. Women are more selective. They're already eliminating. Most women are already eliminating most men. So just make sure those men you're eliminating are people you want to eliminate, which for me is the case, but may not be for everybody else.
Yeah, but like, let's say for women are very selective, right? So let's say you have 100,000 men, okay, and only 100 of them, based on your own standards before, out of these 100,000 men, only 100 of them are even worth looking at, considering, right? Based on how selective women are. But now So it's true that they're already very selective, but now that 100 would be 10. Do you know what I mean? So you're already working with being very picky, but now you have to add to that, which is,
well, this is what I'm trying to say is, like, for instance, I'm an atheist. I wouldn't date someone religious. So let's say only 10 out of the 100 is not Christian. Well, now I already have 10 anyway. Do I just become Christian to
no? Yeah, but if it's only 10, if he used to be now only 10 left because of OnlyFans, now out of that 10, there's only 1 left. So I'm saying I understand that women are already very selective, but that actually makes it worse because now you have to add another selection on top of all the other selective.
I feel like you're signaling out this one selection when you wouldn't have a problem with a woman with a PhD being now eliminating 10 other guys. You wouldn't be selective about a woman who doesn't want to date a religious person. Now, like taking all these
That's a very good point. That's a very good point because you're saying what people, that's a very interesting point that shows how people are sensitive about sexuality, because nobody is going out and screaming like, we need to warn people. I mean, some people are, but it's not as much outrage. We need to warn women about not getting educated. They don't understand that they're reducing their you know, selection. Yeah, you're right. So
anytime you have a standard or anytime you increase your status as a woman or whatever, now you want somebody equal to you. So if you go get a PhD, you're eliminating the plumber. But nobody is like, oh, you shouldn't go get the PhD because then maybe they'll have more option and you can be with the plumber. You say you don't want them. So for me, it's the same thing. Or even if you think of like religion, like more men are religious than not. So do I stay religious so I have these options? No, because I want the options that work with me. Now, what I think is important is if you do OnlyFans, you can't do it and be ashamed of it or not. Like, I believe in sexual freedom and I want a guy who also believes in that and is okay with it. So whoever else I'm eliminating doesn't matter. And I've already eliminated so many people by being educated, by having these, so like OnlyFans is not even the biggest one. Like for me, it's the intelligence. Like if a guy's not very smart, like I don't like him at all. That's most guys that I've already just eliminated. Would you say, oh, you should be less smart or you should read less or you should have less interest because then you have more guys available? Nobody says that, like you said. It's a sensitivity people win.
I never thought about it like that, so that's very interesting. Is it okay if I ask personal questions about your own choices?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you plan to get married and have children?
I don't really mind. Like I'm not one of those people that believes in like we promise each other for life and I believe in like serial monogamy. So like I would probably have a partner and I would like be with them, but I don't believe in this promise to be together forever. I don't even think humans are able to make promises past the foreseeable future, which is why divorce rates are so high. For kids, if I do want them, it would be like I'm one of those later in life, like 35 and over. So let's see, that's 7 years from now. Let's see how I feel at the time. Who knows what the world will even look like.
Do you ever think about like what I will tell my, like it would be what I tell my child about what your mom did, and like is that something that crosses your mind?
Yeah, just like there is an age-appropriate way to talk about sex, I think there's an age-appropriate way to talk about sex work. So people always say, oh my gosh, what if your daughter does this? My one goal for is I want them to be happy. If I could have a daughter as happy and fulfilled and as financially stable and all these things as me, I would love that. So I don't have the stigma around sex is not my like thing. Like I hope by that time society has less of it too. There are people who don't want their son to be gay because they don't want other people to make fun of them more so than they actually have a problem with being gay. But if those things are kind of dissipating, and I do think there is a sex positive, age appropriate way, like, hey, I'm not going to teach my kids sex is this shameful, horrible thing and your mom's doing this shameful thing. I say, look, sex is typically private, but there are people who work in this industry and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's a way you can do it. Like I think so many people have sex as this taboo, bad thing. And that's what's like, how are you going to tell your children? Like, well, sex should be taught as like a normal human thing. And then it's not that hard to go from that to saying also some people work in this industry too.
And you would have like if you had a daughter and she was like 18 years old and she wanted to go on OnlyFans and make money as a mom, you would be completely okay with it.
I mean, like I said, I don't want anyone to do it at 18. I would want her to do me. Go get a degree, go get educated. And then I want you to live the life most conducive to your happiness. So if you want to go be a teacher, go be a teacher. If you want to, like, I am much happier doing this than I would be as a lawyer. Why would I want to deny that from my child because of social stigma or because it makes me feel better? I always say, your parents, you shouldn't have kids so that you're proud of them. You should have kids that are proud of themselves, that are happy in themselves. And I feel like by imposing these, oh, well, I'm going to be embarrassed, or I'm going to be this, or I'm going to be that. That's one of the reasons that I did what I did, even though my parents really didn't like it, is I was like, I don't care what Khalid so-and-so thinks. I don't care. Like, I cannot live my life for them. I'm the one that has to wake up every morning and hit the alarm so that you can feel better at your mehmuni and say that you have 2 lawyer daughters. I wouldn't want that for my child. Now, what I want is for my child safe. I want them to be happy, healthy, and safe. And so hopefully if they're able to do sex work in a way like I can, that's very healthy, that's very safe, that's very like not bad for their mental health, of course I would want that. I
so badly want you to say on the Persian channel at some point, because they need to hear all of this, because they're dealing with this. This is dealing with this more than the English speaking people who are
for sure. To. Oh, 100%. Like, it's very much like, you know, you go to the Mehmuni's, like, and my sister's a lawyer too. Like, and you know what? I actually helped, because before my mom was so pretentious. She'd go to all these and she's like, she's a lawyer and now her daughters are lawyers. And because I had to bring so much shame to her now another kind of child in the community ended up being gay. And my sister said my mom was like, well, like, you know, there are children, and if they want to be gay, like I almost had to humble her. And I like that. I love that I humbled my mother instead of having this idea that, oh, my whole purpose on this earth is so you're proud of me and that I did what you want me to do, so that Persian people see their children as an extension of themselves too much, where they should be their own autonomous being. Everyone talks about, oh, he's the PhD, he's this, he's that. No one asks, is your child happy? Would you rather have your child go be a lawyer every day, miserable, depressed, like we were when we were going into offices, so that you feel better? Like, I don't think that's not the kind of parent I would want to be.
I can't even imagine you dealing with an Iranian family doing all of this, because like, I don't know if people understand how big of a deal this is. Like, parents just in Iran just want to tell that my child is like a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. And you went into the most shameful, like in their ideas, the thing possible. I think it's the 180 from being a lawyer to now being an OnlyFans model. Do you feel guilty to that, what you did to your mom at all?
Yes. Like, yes, I do feel guilty, but I can't let that guilt dictate my life, because again, the only person that's going to fall asleep with myself and wake up with myself every morning is me. So I cannot live my life for them. And especially, like, people always say, oh my God, your culture, your culture. I say, look, I love certain things about Iranian culture. I love how generous we are. I love how warm we are. But there's things I hate about our culture. Like this, like the super hardcore repression on this. So why I don't respect that part of my culture. I don't adhere to that part of my culture. I want to actually speak out against that. And the reason that I think at this point, my parents just gave up, because I'm so argumentative and I have debate that if my mom says, why are you doing this? Then I just fight with her for 3 hours and she says, okay, and then leaves. So she doesn't like, so she doesn't.
Yeah, I know.
I say, what's the problem with sex work? Like, I can only challenge their beliefs in this way because I did it. And unless people are brave enough to go against the parts of the culture that are harmful, then they can't sit there and complain about it.
Right. By the way, I just have, I know you have to go soon. I just want to make sure that I put your YouTube channel one more time in the live chat. Guys, it's also in the description. So Jasmine is very big on a lot of social media, but not that big on YouTube. So you need to go subscribe to her YouTube channel, because she's doing...
boost it.
Yes, because your YouTube channel, you do a different kind of work there. You actually, you know, it's very, you know, intellectual discussions. It's also advocating, giving legal advice to other people. So go boost that channel, because that's a very helpful channel to a lot of people that might need that help. So link in the description. So I had this question. A lot of people suggest that if you go into sex work, sex becomes less enjoyable after some time. How true is that?
Depends what you're, so I don't do like collaborations. I don't do like mainstream porn. I only, I have sex with one partner and we film it. So it's just our sex life that we're bringing to. So for me, my sex life looks exactly the same. Now I can't speak for people who have like do porn and they have like they arrive on set and then they have sex and then they leave and they whatever. Although I have friends that do that, and honestly, not really, because in their minds they can completely flip it from when it's a job to when it's not. I don't know, because I don't do that. So I'm not entirely sure that for each individual person how that would go.
But even if you just, you know, put your like nude pictures out there, wouldn't that, again, I don't know, but wouldn't that lose the spark, like the specialness? Because there's something like when somebody is like, when it's private and it's like yours and it's like, there's something special. Like when you take, you know, her clothes off or his clothes off, there's something magical that happens in the moment, that there's something you're seeing something private that is now special between the two of us. Would that go away if it's like the videos and pictures of what you're seeing is all over the internet?
In fact, it's even more so, because you're kind of like me and we're almost turned on that all these people want to do this and we're the only two people that are doing it. Like we're the only two people that are, he said, the only one actually having sex with me, even though all these people, like, to me, there's such a different distinction between seeing and wishing you were there versus actually being there. So almost it's more sexy to us that like he's having sex or we're having sex, he's having sex with someone that all these other men or whoever like are dying to do, but he's the only one. So there is that exclusivity in that they're the only one that's actually doing it and everybody else is like paying to watch it.
Okay. All right. So before you go, I'm just going to read some of the super chats. Alex is saying, Jazz, have you, I don't know what this is. Have you ever been accused of being, what is that?
A Nepo baby is somebody whose like parents are well off. So like you kind of can bank off that. I don't know about a Nepo baby because I mean, obviously, but I definitely have been accused of being very privileged and speaking from a place of privilege in this industry. And I have thought about this a lot. Like me, like sex work is such a spectrum. Like it can go from people that are like on Skid Row addicted to drugs to people like me making a ton of money doing like what I'm doing. And so are we the best voices, those of us that are entirely privileged, because we don't know the experience of all these women over here? So I mean, I do think about that sometimes.
Okay. The next super chat, there's a swear word at you in it.
That's fine.
Okay. There was a lot of disrespectful comments, by the way, in the live chat. Just like,
yeah, I don't mind.
I just want people to know what you have to deal with. Zayar Baker saying, "Why don't you debate Muslim skeptic?" And then
I would love to debate anybody. So if Muslim skeptic wants to DM me on Instagram or something, I would debate it. I would.
Okay, his name is Daniel Haraju, and if you do debate with him, tell him that doesn't he debate me? He actually he doesn't debate me because he says that my social media numbers are too low, so I'm not worthy of debating. But if you ever meet him, tell him that to come debate me. Tell him that he's
I would love to see it between you guys.
Yeah. All right. Destiny debated him. That was really beautiful to watch. Komar saying, can you invite her to the Persian program, please? And also, yes, Sarah, there's some people here that are both on the Persian channel and the English channel. Sarah is saying, Armin, take her to your Persian channel ASAP. Yeah, a lot of people are requesting that. So can I get you to? Yes, fantastic. Guys, thank you. I had to ask you on air so that it's recorded. Okay, and peace. I don't know what this means. Kendrick Lamar
is a rapper.
Yeah. Okay. And then Darko was saying reformed Islam would just encourage more new conversions. Exactly. That's Tarun saying, why care about what affects you not? I don't understand. You're not about PP. I don't understand the super chat. Sorry about that. Secular Sakai saying, thank you for having this guest on the show. Yeah,
Thanks.
A lot of people in the live chat were finding this conversation very, very helpful. And Secular Sakai also gave us a super.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So is there anything else that you want to mention or promote? I know, like my viewers, like we have 1,000 people watching, right? 1,200 people watching, 1,000 on Twitter and 200 on YouTube. So this is pretty good. But yeah, I know that you probably don't need my promotions given how
I love just like I love doing like the best part of my job is that I'm doing so well that it allows me to do these things without like worrying like, oh my gosh, what's the return on investment? That's not why I do these.
Yeah.
But I love, and especially being Iranian and atheist, I was very, because obviously I'd read your book. So when you reached out to me, I was like, yeah, 100% I'll do this conversation. It's fun. And I enjoyed it. I want to debate you more in the future.
Okay, fantastic. Well, here's the thing. Anytime, like I'm not going to ask you too quick because you're going to be like, I was just there. But you can invite yourself on my channel anytime you want. Okay,
perfect.
So
I would love
invitation. Okay, fantastic. All right, guys, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're watching this on Twitter, like 1,000 people are watching on Twitter right now, please come to our YouTube channel and subscribe to Atheist Republic on YouTube. And again, don't just, I know everybody is looking for, I don't know if I can say that on YouTube or I'll get into trouble. Everybody is looking for, you know what account, but, and it's easy to find that. But please also go and subscribe to Jasmine's YouTube channel. I know it's not as rewarding as her other account, but I'm sure it's very good. Like I really like her YouTube channel. So please go also subscribe to her on YouTube.
And then if you guys want to be up to date on my like debates and stuff I'm doing, or like stuff like this, I usually put it on my story on Instagram, and my Instagram is just my name, Jasmine Jafar. So that's kind of
okay. So
yeah.
Yeah, just search for her name on Instagram, and I'll go look for it. I'll put it in the description as well.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you. This was so much fun. Yeah. All right. Okay. Bye, guys.